Cassius here, and today I'm going to give my thoughts on Diablo 4. The game has a lot of pros and cons that go along with it, and the first thing I'm going to say is that I found it fun the whole way through, mostly. There are some things that took me out of it that made it so I didn't have as much fun as I feel like I could have, but overall I still had a good time with it. And there were some aspects of the game that I felt were pretty lazy with the design, but we'll get into that as I go on. First, I want to start off with the pros. The game is a very polished game. I'm running on high settings right now, and it's going very smoothly, as you can see. I don't have a very good computer. It's all right, but not a great computer. And the fact that I can run on high settings like this, I'm impressed. But that's pretty typical of Blizzard with their products. The controls are tight. They're very responsive, which again is something that is key for action RPGs. So I would expect that of the game when Blizzard releases it. The graphics, they look good, as you can see. Everything, like I said, is smooth. Good artwork right there, all around on the Necromancer, which is what I played through the main story. And yeah, but I don't really have a lot else to say about the graphics there. They're nice, and as I said, the artwork, as usual by Blizzard, one of their greatest divisions, do a great job every single game they make. So, as always, kudos to Blizzard. And the most surprising thing about Diablo 4 was the smooth launch. Blizzard is not well known for having great launches. Everything I've experienced, well, not everything. Dragonflight did okay, but most of Blizzard launches have a bit of an issue. So the fact that this went so smoothly impressed me. I want to give good kudos where it's due. The story didn't really do a whole lot for me. It was okay. I didn't like the ambiguous nature of the villain, whether they're good, whether they're evil. I prefer just to have an evil villain for me to go after when I'm doing an ARPG. I wasn't a big fan of how often the game made me stop and watch dialogue and stop and watch cutscenes, and it happened over and over again. And I would have liked to just continue playing. The thing about the other, like, say Diablo 2, for example, one of the reasons I like the story in that one so much is because you get to choose when you want to stop. And if you don't have to listen to everyone, you just listen to the few quests there, listen to the dialogue if you want to get the story, and then move on. If you want to get the story of all the characters and everything, you can do that, but it's not necessary to enjoy the story. And yes, it's just sit there and watch a block of text, which is a little boring, but it gets the job done, and then you just play. And you don't have to worry about that again for a long time. So I much prefer that over the constant stopping of the story with lots of cutscenes like this one has. Also, maybe it's just my experience with the character, but I never really felt like my character was a necromancer. Like if you go back and you play Diablo 2, all the little quips that the character does makes it sound like they are the necromancer, or gives you an idea of what the character is like. And if you go to Diablo 3, say the barbarian, how he interacts with, or she interacts, you can choose either gender, with the enchantress, where they're kind of a jerk to the enchantress because they don't trust magic and don't trust anyone who uses magic, so they don't respond well to the enchantress. Or how the wizard is essentially supremely arrogant because they think they're the best there ever is at what they're doing, at casting spells. So they have that particular aspect of them as well. And you get a good sense of what their character is and who they are. In this one, I just kind of felt like a generic adventure. It didn't matter that I was a necromancer. It didn't matter that whatever. Maybe it's if I played a different class, I would get a different experience, and so maybe that's not true. But that's just how I thought about it when I was going through it. And now we're going to get into some of my less positive things to say about the game, specifically some baffling design choices. Firstly, why is there no option to go into just full screen? Why is it just windowed and windowed full screen? I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But Okay, that's what Blizzard decided to do, but I really think that should have been an option in there. Second thing is, why is there no key ring for the keys that you can get? Why do they go straight into the consumables? I know that's historically how the keys worked with the Diablo 1 and 2. They take up a part of your inventory, but if they're not going to be a part of the main inventory, so you have to worry about them there, why not just have a little keyring slot right here so you can see how many keys you have and make it cap off at 12 or something, or somewhere around there. And same thing for gems. Why do gems take up so much space when you have so little options? Why is you have a consumables option here and an aspects, but you don't have a little gem tab? That should be something that's there. There should definitely be a gem tab. I'm also not a big fan of how little storage space you get. That's pretty standard Diablo, though. You don't get a lot of storage space. I do expect them to add more as the seasons go on. Say you unlock them through the battle pass or whatever, which I don't really approve of that as a mechanic for unlocking storage space. But if that's how they want to do it, then all right. But that will be a negative if that is how they plan on giving you more storage space, at least in my opinion. And another aspect of the game that I just find baffling is, why are there so many stats? My Necromancer has 25 different offensive stats that I need to manage. I mean, I can cut them down based on what build I have, but there's also like 19 different defensive stats for me to manage, and plus the utility stats. There doesn't need to be this many. All this damage with bleeding, damage with burning, damage with poisoning, and shadow damage over time. Why not just put all of these into damage over time? One damage over time stat. That would cut out 3 there. Also, why is shadow damage over time and straight shadow damage different? Why not just make them both shadow? That would make so much more sense. Also, damage versus close, distant, and injured. I don't think you need those. Those you can probably cut all 3 of those out and you'd be perfectly fine. There's so many things that could just be trimmed on all having. All that it does to have all of these different stats here is make it harder for me to get the stats I want on my gear. So it takes longer for me to get the best gear that I want, which is probably the intended design decision, but I greatly disapprove of that. Cut it down, make it simpler. This is supposed to be a more casual, friendly game, so you really should make it easier for people to get what they want. And the other thing that really made me kind of dislike the leveling in the game was the sense of progression. I just thought that was really poorly done. The first bit was the leveling. Whenever you level, everything around you gets stronger. So the world scales with you. The monsters scale in damage and toughness with you, which is to be expected with this game. We knew it going into it, but you don't scale as fast. When you level, you get an ability point so you can put into one of your skills, but the enemies are tougher than just putting one ability into one of those things most of the time. It just doesn't feel, it feels bad to level because you're killing them slower. In order for you to catch up to the enemies to do more damage to them, you have to get gear. So the real progression is gear. Leveling just kind of gets you the ability so that way you can use more and get your build going. I think that is a very poor design decision. I know why they decided to do the scaling so that way people can play with each other. It makes sense. But they could have done it in a different way so that way it doesn't feel bad to level up. Maybe if you wanted to play with somebody and you were a higher level than them, you scale down to their level when you decide to play with them. But you don't, so that, I don't know if that would fix it. I don't know if that would make any difference whatsoever. But it's another way of doing it that wouldn't affect everybody who doesn't want to play with other people. Another thing that I didn't really like about the leveling was the non-linear nature of the first 3 acts. It really kind of undercuts the progression of the story, where you can feel like you're progressing towards something. And you still got it a little bit, but it's just the general nature of non-linear storytelling. It's the same thing that happened with World of Warcraft Legion, that expansion where you didn't have to go through any of the zones. You can choose whichever one you want to do. It's great. Player choice, awesome. But it kind of hurt the storytelling for the first part of Legion. And it hurt the storytelling here too. And that's really all I gotta say about that particular aspect of it. It's not that big of a deal. Again, I still have fun with the game. I still like the game. But those things just kind of took me out of the. Oh, of course, didn't see that coming. Anyway, it didn't take me out. I still had fun. The last little bit that I want to talk about is the repeated enemy types. And this really made it hard for me to feel like I was progressing in power throughout the game. One of the first enemies that you fight are the Fallen, those little red imp things. And they're seen throughout all of the Diablo games, Diablo 1, 2, 3, and 4 now. They're everywhere, and they're always weak. They're always easy enemies to kill. Except for in Diablo 3, they're not in the first act. They're not in the first area. They're in the second one. But they're always there. And they're stable. So, makes sense that they're being here too. But they always go away after the first little bit, and you don't really see them again because you move past them. You progress past the Fallen. And you move on to the tougher enemies as you get stronger. Well, with the scaling, this game doesn't do that. And not only do you just keep fighting the Fallen, but in Chapter 1 in Diablo 2, you would fight Fallen, then you'd fight the Carvers, which are the next level of Fallen as the chapter went on, or the act went on. And then by the end, you were fighting Vile Ones, the highest level of the Fallen that you could fight. The highest type, I should say. And in this one, I'm fighting Fallen at level 5, and then I'm continuing to fight more Fallen at level 30. And then when I get to the final chapter, I'm going into hell to try and fight the final bad guy. What is the first enemy that I run into? More Fallen. This time they're Vile Ones, or at least they're not just straight up Fallen, but it's still Fallen. I'm not fighting tough demons. I'm still fighting Fallen the entire time. And it just doesn't feel good to do that. I don't want to fight the same enemy throughout the entirety of the game. At least in Diablo 3, when you were doing greater rifts, it felt like, okay, it's just a game mechanic. This is a thing to be gamey. It's not trying to tell a story. It's just gamey, have fun, go kill things. But when you're going through the main story campaign, you shouldn't be fighting the same enemies over and over and over again as you get stronger. You should outclass them. You should move beyond them. Yeah. Anyway, that little rant over. And one more thing about the enemies, though. Why am I fighting so many humans? This is a game about fighting and killing demons and monsters, and yet I'm fighting humans all the time. In this dungeon, a great dungeon is to showcase that. I'm fighting flesh eaters and mother's disciples, which again, cultists. You see cultists in all the other games. That's fine. That happens. But you also fight bandits, level 45 bandits. You fight cannibals, and there's so many humans, which I did not expect to have to deal with going into a Diablo game. A little bit here and there, sure, but just again, so many humans. I wish there would have been fewer. Yeah, but that's it. Again, these are minor complaints. Except I will say that the repeated enemy types are, that one wasn't a minor. That one's a significant complaint for me because it really made it hard for me to feel engrossed in the story with that being an issue. But the rest of it was, it's like, okay, whatever. But yeah, that's it. That's my basic thoughts on Diablo 4. So I thank you for listening this far or watching the video. I hope you had a good time. Please let me know if you have any thoughts down in the comment. comments. I'd love to hear from you. And until I see you again, have a good one, y'all. Later.